something uncomfortable pops up, I want to name it and talk about it, because if I don't talk about it, then I know that thousands or millions of other people are not talking about it, and I know we all feel it. So I found myself getting nervous that I was going to say he instead of they.
Which you did.
Which I did, and then I corrected. And then earlier I heard Liz do it. And what's funny is, first of all, I put Liz, for everybody, on a pedestal.
Which I don't deserve to be on.
She's next level. And she educates me and has been so kind and generous. And I noticed I went like, oh, okay, I feel better that I'm not the only one. And I read your book, and I understand gender pronouns, and yet I still find myself sometimes feeling nervous because I don't want to mess up or hurt you or say the wrong thing or feel like I'm taking away from your identity by calling you a he. And so I'm just wondering, do you feel people being nervous that they're going to say it wrong? This is a 101 class for listeners, because because I noticed I felt nervous and I didn't want to make you feel bad. And so I apologize if I did. I tried to correct it right away. But for anybody who's listening who maybe has never been around a gender nonconforming person, because there's way too many people that haven't. I'm just curious. So that's kind of where I wanted to start.
Sure. I guess I would say welcome to the awkward choreography of being a human. Yeah. We're always going to mess up because we are indoctrinated into a world that teaches us ideology, not compassion. So it's not you speaking when you misgender me. It's everyone that has spoken to you before. And in my life, what I always try to remind people is I was not born with gender literacy. I was born hating myself and hunting myself. And I had to learn too. So other people are going to have to learn. And if that way, I think trans people can actually teach the world transition is possible, not just between genders, but between paradigms. It's so possible to learn and constantly be learning. And in fact, learning is the most delightful thing about being alive. So what I say is, when you mess up, which is when you're alive, because being alive is about messing up gloriously. And I will fight for that ability to gloriously mess up, because I don't believe that humans are statues or sculptures. I believe that we're inconsistent and idiosyncratic and hairy and fat and unfurling. And that's what's joyous about being alive. What we do then is say, I'm sorry, I'm learning. It won't happen again. And then if it happens again, I'm sorry, I'm going to try even harder. And that's what love is for me, trying harder for each other.
I'm going to cry. What are we going to do? I want to know how we're going to get through this podcast.
That legit made me tear up just now. Thank you.
Because it's just like mic drop every time. I appreciate how gracious you are with this. I don't want to make a false equivalence. But being Black, I've experienced trying to find a way to navigate through it all. And some of us who are oppressed have more capacity to deal with the bullshit than another. Doesn't make us better. It means that for whatever reason, we're able. And we need people that are able to do that so that those can learn who otherwise wouldn't. I'm sorry. I'm taking a long time getting out because I'm also getting emotional, because I personally, through my life, who champions people, I don't get it all. And I'm feeling bad that I don't get it, because you're fucking amazing. And I'm listening to you speak and I'm like, why do I not fight for them? Why do I have such passion for other things, but this one I have a disconnect with? So what do I need to unlearn? How can I help other, and I particularly talk about men, help them unlearn?
Let's get into it. I'm non-binary, which means it's not just that I'm challenging the binary between male, female, man, woman, but between us and them. And in your statement, you said, why don't I help them, as if this struggle is not your struggle too? The reason you don't fight for me is because you're not fighting for yourself fully. And any movement that's trying to emancipate men from the shackles of heteropatriarchy, or emancipate women from traditional gender ideology, has to have trans and non-binary people at the forefront, because we are actually the most honest. We're tracing the root. Where do these ideas of manhood and womanhood come from? They come from a binary structure. And so that's why people like me who are visibly gender nonconforming, who are both feminine and masculine and none of the above, we experience the brunt of all of these collective fantasies that were created that are killing other people, that are also killing us. It just looks different. And so one of the things that I try to do in my work is say, don't show up for me because you want to protect me or you want to help me. I don't need your help. I have an unshakable and irrevocable sense of who I am because I am divine. I come from people who were exterminated and targeted by colonists because the gender binary, and we can get into this, was superimposed on Black people, Indigenous people, and people of color by European colonists. And the reason that they targeted us is because they knew our power, right? So the reason that there's so much animus against me is because of my power. I don't need to be legitimized, or I don't have anything to prove. What I want us to rephrase the conversation is, are you ready to heal? And I don't think the majority of people are ready to heal. And that's why they repress us as trans and gender variant people, because they've done this violence to themselves first. They've repressed their own femininity. They've repressed their own gender nonconformity. They've repressed their own ambivalence. They've repressed their own creativity. And so when they see us have the audacity to live a life without compromise, where we say there are no trade-offs, where we say we actually get to carve in the marrow of this earth and create our own goddamn beauty, instead of saying thank you for teaching me another way to live, they try to disappear us because they did that to themselves first. So I guess I would rephrase your question to be, can you help me get free? Not, can you help me help you? One of the things that we don't speak enough about is that we don't know how to see each other for each other. We see each other for what we think one another should be. So we're constantly, when you say pedestal, I think that's dehumanizing. Because we're at a table and that's what it means to be alive. It's to look at each other horizontally, not need to put each other on pedestals. And that we inherit that of saying that the only way that people have value is if they're saints. But I actually believe that people have value because they're the opposite of being a saint. And I actually believe that there's a dignity just to being, not to doing. So if we actually believe that people have dignity for being, not doing, there's a kind of mercy and a kind of love that I have for everyone, because we've only been conditioned into feeling like we can be loved if we emulate some standards that were created by someone else. So people have not experienced my kind of love before. Because what I'm actually telling men is you don't have to be masculine. You don't have to be strong. You don't have to be all-knowing. What I'm actually telling men is you're allowed to be vulnerable. You're allowed to be human. And people don't know how to receive that love. And I think that's the paradigm shift I really want to move away from, is that the fear and the danger makes it so that people aren't ready to receive love. People have been taught to fear the very things that have the potential to set them free. This has nothing to do with trans and non-binary people. It's never been about us. It's not about what we look like. It's about what they feel like. And they don't know how to feel love like we can give. And that's why marginalized communities are persecuted. It's not because of what we look like, what we're saying, our identities, our pronouns, our nomenclatures, our language, our scholarship. It's because of the presence of love that people feel like they can't actually inherit on this earth. And so the reason that there's so much violence that men are siphoning onto us is because they don't love themselves. And so they see our self-love, right? They see, I have men come up to me in New York City and say, I used to wear my mom's dresses when I was younger. And then I'll say, what happened? And they can't even articulate that. And that's where our starting ground is. You don't even have the language to articulate a wound. So you don't even know that you're hurting and that you're bleeding. And what we as trans and gender nonconforming people said is that there's a wound here, and I'm going to commit my life to actually realigning my spiritual core such that I never have to compromise myself for other people's love. And I'm going to prioritize and choose me in a world that makes me have to contour myself into someone else's fiction. And so what I tell men is this is not about accepting trans and gender nonconforming people. This is about accepting yourself. And if you do that work